Hey there, welcome to episode 61 of Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and at what makes them do what they do. I'm Pete Townsend, your co-host of Money Never Sleeps, along with Owen Fitzgerald. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is kindly sponsored by Ireland's fintech and financial services recruitment specialist, Top Tier Recruitment. If you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, we highly recommend you have a chat with the team at Top Tier Recruitment as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com and tell them we sent you. In this episode, Owen and I talked to Paul Smyth, co-founder of our sponsor, Top Tier Recruitment, but also the founder of a new business, simply called Possible. It's an executive and life coaching practice operating as a sister brand to Top Tier Recruitment, which he co-founded with Laura Smyth in 2016. Our loyal listeners should be familiar with Paul from prior episodes, but let's just get right into it with episode 61 of Money Never Sleeps. Here we go again. Welcome to Money Never Sleeps. We're recording today from the offices of our sponsor, Top Tier Recruitment, in WeWork Dublin Landings. I'm Pete Townsend, and we're here with Paul Smyth, friend of the show, sponsor of the show, co-founder of Top Tier Recruitment, and founder of a new business as well that we'll get right into. But first, welcome back, Paul.
Thanks, Pete.
Great to have you back.
Good to be here.
So we covered pretty much your backstory when we had you and your co-founder, in air quotes on, Laura Smyth, back on episode 17, which was last year. And legitimately your co-founder as well as your partner in life, correct? But give us the accelerated version, just so we have the context for some of our listeners that may not have heard the first episode.
Just to refresh.
That we did with you. Just to refresh.
So I studied commerce in UCD, specialised in finance, managed a restaurant for a year after that because it was a good
I never
idea.
knew that.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you ever cook?
I cook now, but not professionally. No.
Okay.
No. Love food. It's a bit of a passion. But I managed, or I worked in a restaurant in college, and then the guy I was working with opened up a place in Cabinteely at the time. And said, you want to give it a go on the management side, and I did. It was either that or kind of go away for a year, so I thought it'd work. And after about a year, I kind of figured, I should do something with my degree. So I went to a couple of recruitment agencies, and it was 2007. So financial services was like booming in Dublin. So I was in looking for a job, and then a couple of them said to me, you should do the recruitment side. And I thought finance and finance knowledge could help, and I like working with people, and I like the kind of entrepreneurial aspect to it. So I did, and got into recruitment in September 2007. I literally got a year of good recruitment back when Merrill Lynch were still around and Lehman Brothers were still around.
Jesus,
and
yeah.
I literally remember September 2008. I remember Lehman Brothers closing and all of that stuff, and it just went to hell for about a year and a half. But then it started to recover, so kind of progressed into management. On the recruitment side, then I would have joined State Street for a couple of years, so I would have managed recruitment for about 70% of Europe for State Street. Spent a bit of time in Krakow, which was great. Then went back to where I was previously as COO, and then a year after that, myself and Laura set up Top Tier.
Yep.
So that was January 2016. So we're year 4 now, which is kind of scary when you say it out loud.
It flies by.
Yeah, it's Jesus, lots of lessons learned. Because I remember you asked us actually last year, what would you do differently? And God, if you ask that question again.
Yeah.
So we know it's great, and we're much more solid now. We're an actual business, it feels like. We've a great loyal client base. We've loads of candidates that come back to us again and again. And I think, like we kind of talked about it before, we do things the right way, we hope. We certainly try to anyway, and I think that stood to us. It's probably meant, our growth in terms of in comparison to competitors who would have set up around the same time is maybe been a bit slower, but it's a lot more solid. It's a lot more real. It's a lot more tangible, and we're really doing now what we set out to do, which was really partner with clients.
Yeah.
Do more than just service with CVs.
Absolutely. I think that really comes out in even the tagline that we use, that we read for every single podcast intro and outro that we do.
Yeah.
Is that attracting and retaining great talent.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And when people need help with retaining,
yeah,
right? That isn't you going out and getting a fee for something. That's having a relationship with a company.
Yeah, but I mean, I mentioned retention kind of first publicly actually at a Minovate last year.
Yep.
And I'm sure when I did it, I remember thinking to myself, "It's like, this is crazy. Why are you saying it out loud?" But ultimately, if we have a client who has low turnover, good retention rates, they're a really attractive client. So why wouldn't we want to retain staff, or why wouldn't we want clients to retain staff?
Yeah, and it's that transparency that makes you who you are, Paul Smyth.
Yeah, thanks, peace.
So you did a coaching class earlier this year.
Yeah, I did a professional qualification in coaching. So it was an ICF accredited course. It was over 5 months, would have been 136 hours of training. And yeah, qualified now. So fully professional coach.
So, and you're wheeling that into a sub-brand or a new business completely called Possible.
Yeah, so Possible.ie is it's a sister brand, I call it. So we don't have any branding anywhere on either website that represents the other website at all, but it is part of my email signature, so that's about as close as it gets.
Yeah.
But for me, I suppose I kind of stumbled into coaching a little bit. A good friend of ours, we were out for dinner one night, and we were chatting about Billions, the show.
Yeah.
And, we were talking about Wendy, and she does her coaching and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Just really liked the show. And, this friend said, "Got to do this coaching course a few years ago, and I think you'd really like it." So I said, "Sure, why not? I'll give it a go." And I called Alva Harrington, who's the lady who runs the course. And we had a very brief chat about, 10, 15 minutes. I didn't look into it too much, and then I got an email offer about 3 weeks before it was due to start, saying, "Have you thought about it?" And I hadn't, but I said, "Sure, why not? I'll give it a go." So I went down with no major kind of expectations, other than I was going to learn something new that could be potentially beneficial for what we do. And really, then it was this could be something that is very aligned to what we do, and additional service, etc., which it still is to an extent. But I suppose for me, I discovered a whole new world of, what's out there outside of kind of day-to-day, outside of recruitment, which can be transactional at times. This was a lot more personal, a lot more involved, a lot more, it almost felt altruistic, but benefited a huge amount from it. So Possible.ie is the coaching side of what we do now. And we do both executive coaching and life coaching. So working with business and personal clients.
Tell me about the context of just bouncing right into that, right? In that you having relationships with executives already today, right? For the top tier business, the recruitment business. And then moving that into a scenario whereby they kind of bare their soul.
Yeah.
Right? That's a different context.
Totally.
How do you get them? I know you're just beginning and starting out in the last couple of months, but what's your plan for getting them to drop their guard a bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, the great thing about what we've done with Top Tier is that people have started to drop their guard, and people are a lot more honest around what they're looking for and what the issues are in their business. So I feel like we kind of have that relationship a little bit with some clients, and it's something that we're always looking to develop with others. It's definitely a different perspective. Instead of you calling me to say, I'm looking for a whatever head of fund accounting, you're calling me, and now we're setting up a 12-hour engagement to focus on whatever it is that you want to focus on. You want to look at how you land with people, you want to look at how you communicate, you want to look at how you show up as a leader or whatever. They're very, very different conversations for sure. But I think an awful lot of it will come down to the initial agreements, the initial kind of contracting that we do as part of coaching, setting up your contract and setting up how you're going to work with each other as coach and coachee is really, really important. So it'll come down to that. Okay.
And talk for a minute about the difference between coaching and mentoring.
Yeah, coaching and mentoring. So I showed one of the guys who we work with, I showed him a coaching demo, and he turned around to me afterwards. He was like, "What the hell is that? Like, that's the biggest load of rubbish." The coach did absolutely nothing. I was like, that's the point.
Yeah.
So I suppose mentoring is kind of knowledge sharing. It's quite directive. It's relying on maybe a senior person within a company or an industry to give you guidance, to offer you support. And don't get me wrong, mentoring absolutely has its place and is very, very valuable. I've people I talk to around recruitment and other things. So I certainly wouldn't discount mentoring at all. But coaching is very, very different. Coaching to me is I suppose my role as a coach is to help you create awareness and to help you create perspective about what's going on for you. It's very action orientated. It's not directive from me in any way. So you come up with your own ideas. It's kind of based on the belief that you're resourceful and whole and creative, and that you are the best expert on yourself. And that all sounds really fluffy. And honestly, 7 months ago, I wouldn't have spoken like it. But having experienced it, having gone through all of the training and everything else, it really, really works. And I think a good coaching session, if you're leaving a coaching session as a coachee, as a client, you want to be tired. You know, you want to have done a lot of thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's those little kind of light bulb moments almost that it creates is really what energizes you through it and brings you back for the next one. And it can actually be quite addictive, strangely. So, yeah.
Yeah, I did it a few years ago. So when I first started off in doing what I do, I had some demons to exercise from my past.
We all have them.
Yeah. And that I felt... I wasn't feeling that they were holding me back, but I knew they would kind of hold me back. So someone recommended to me a coach that works specifically with entrepreneurs. I sat down for probably a 2-hour session with her, and you're right, I was exhausted because she really put me through the ringer. And she said for her, the hardest thing about becoming a coach was to almost like being on Jeopardy, where you got to phrase everything in the form of a question. Right? And that you can't make statements.
Yeah.
Now, it's not that simple, obviously. But what she really helped me to do was almost compartmentalize some of those demons into a figure up on a shelf that just becomes kind of a, what's that word? An idol.
Yeah.
Right? And say, and it would... It, like you're saying, it does sound a bit fluffy, but it really does work. But if I hadn't gone through that, I'd be in a different place than I was.
But you need to recognize those demons for yourself almost.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're in school, I always use this example. You're kind of told, you know, for leaving cert year, do a little bit of study every week, and it'll make your life easier at the end of the year. And that's absolutely true. You know, no one can deny that. But that never landed for me when I was in school. But I realise it now. But I hadn't realised it for myself, even though I was told it, you know. So, you know, the demons or gremlins, as people like to call them in coaching, sometimes you don't even realise they're there. You don't even realise they're kind of holding you back. Or, you know, the biggest realisation for a lot of people is, Jesus, am I the person who I actually think I am, or am I someone else? And that can be a really, really challenging thing to kind of confront and come up with.
Absolutely. And
you'd be surprised, an awful lot of times it's actually the people in the senior positions who kind of have those doubts or those little moments of hesitation, and they can be drivers, but they can also hold you back. And it's kind of recognising when they flip into that holding back kind of, you know, side of things.
What are some of the signs when they kind of flip?
It depends. It totally depends. Yeah. So I mean, let me think. One for me, I've this one that's kind of, you know, self-doubt. So it's like this internal monologue, like that wasn't good enough. So, you know, I'll leave this room after this, and I'll be like, could have done it better, could have done it better, could have done better. And that, if that lasts for too long, that stops me from doing other things. So it'll impact how I communicate later on with my team. It'll impact all of that stuff. But the flip side, the positive side of that is I always want to be better. I always want to push myself. I always want to do more for clients on the recruitment side, you know. I always want to push myself that little bit longer. So it's, I suppose, realising that is the hard part. And that's the real key to coaching. But once you have that awareness, once you have that understanding that this thing is there, then you can manage it or come up with ways of managing it for yourself.
Absolutely. You know, and I think my thing changes monthly.
Yeah. we have a lot of things.
We have a lot of
yeah.
What do you think in terms of, you know, I was going to ask you about the personality traits of yourself where this works, but let me take a stab at it because I know you well enough. Paul, anytime that you talk to me, I can tell that you're listening with your ears and with your eyes, right? Is it you're looking for probably self-doubt? You're looking for little cues of how to probably redirect your next question. You know, and I think you are an excellent listener. And is that a personality trait or inquisitiveness or what? What do you think it is where this works for you?
Listening is a huge part, and eyes and ears definitely. So, you know, you need to listen to what people are saying for the story. You need to listen for what they're not saying, which is nearly more important sometimes. Your eyes will obviously see and observe body language. You'll know when someone is thinking because they're looking away from you. You'll know when they're ready to engage again because they look back at you. Very simple things like that. A lot of it is down to what's called level 3 listening, which is almost it's almost a feeling. It's almost an intuition. And for me, it's when I'm in that coaching conversation, it's being able to get out of your head a little bit and listen to what's in your heart and in your gut. And then I think there's the kind of almost bravery to be able to share that with your client. Because very often you're picking up subconscious things that happen. So like I had a surprise party for Laura's 30th.
Yeah.
And she hadn't a clue it was happening. It was great, actually. I'll show you a video afterwards.
Awesome.
But we opened the doors to the apartment, genuinely, and there would have been, 20, 25 people in the room. She hadn't a clue that they were there, but as soon as she opened the door, she knew something was off. That's the intuition, like that's the gut. That's what you need to tune into. It's a disturbance in the force
sense.
Almost.
Yeah.
You know there's something not quite right.
Yeah, the force is strong in that one.
Yeah, so listening is really, really, really important. I think empathy is really important as well. You need to be able to maintain that kind of positive vision for your clients. You need to be able to believe in them. You need to be able to believe that they can come up with their own solutions. I think kind of getting out of your own way as a coach is really important. Because it's very easy to kind of get sucked into or to collude with your client if something is going on that's gone on in your own life, for example. So there's loads of different traits, but listening is definitely one of the key ones.
What do you think is the optimal outcome for a typical persona that you'd be looking to coach?
How do you mean?
How long of a time frame do you expect to be able to work with someone to see positive results?
Yeah, so normally an engagement is kind of 10 to 12 hours is typically what you need. Normally your first couple of hours are around kind of setting up that coaching agreement and really setting the foundation for the rest of the coaching sessions. And to see real change and to really explore, you're looking at a 90-minute or 2-hour session.
Okay.
So it's normally 2 hours at the start and then whatever that is, 5 2-hour sessions typically in between, with a little bit of time for wrap up. If it's with a CEO or an entrepreneur who isn't necessarily reporting into someone, it's just them. If it's with someone stepping into management for the first time or high potential in your business or a senior manager, it may be that you have a tri-party conversation with that person's line manager to agree expectations, etc. But yeah, it's normally around kind of 10 to 12 hours.
And out of those 10 to 12 hours, you talked a bit about being able to get to the point with a client where they are realizing these 1 to 2 to 3 different things that are signals for them as to, okay, I'm going in the wrong direction. Is that kind of the outcome, to know those 1 or 2 or 3 things?
No, not necessarily. The outcome changes depending on the person. So it's totally your agenda as the coachee. If you're coming to coaching, it's because you either want to, make a positive change, you want to stop yourself doing certain things, you want to do more of certain things. So it really depends. A lot of times it comes back to very fundamental conversations around values and really discovering what values are. That can be an important piece of work. Certainly, looking at demons or gremlins or your blocks or whatever is massively important, but it really depends on the client. Okay. It's totally up to them.
Okay. What do you think in terms of one single person that's been a big influence on you?
I think there's been a lot. Certainly my family, my mum and my dad have been a big influence on me. Laura definitely, just in terms of the amount of support that you get from her. Marcus, my old boss in FK, has been great, particularly on the recruitment side, just in terms of advice. So, I don't have one kind of guru that I go to. Lucky to have a whole load of different people. Yeah,
I mean, and maybe you just answered it there, but it was that, the Obi-Wan to your Luke Skywalker, right? Is there an individual there that, you said, listen, I'm going to take this to the next level. I am doing, successfully running top tier with Laura for the last 4 years, like you said, and partway through 2019 said, listen, I'm going to go ahead and do the coaching. Like you said, enriching your own ability to help your clients, to help your customers is a fantastic thing. Is there an example of anybody out there, professionally, personally, that you'd say, listen, I kind of look at what they're doing and say, impressed with how they do it? Is there somebody that, that you would like to either try to emulate or that you look to for inspiration?
Honestly, no. And that's not trying to be big-headed in any way. I look at lots of different people and what to do on the recruitment side, for example, and I see, clever marketing or an idea that we might try to take ourselves, or I see a lot of people doing similar stuff to what we're doing at the minute. So I wouldn't say there's kind of any one particular person. I think what I like to do is to, I suppose, look at the positive aspects of a whole load of different people, decide what I like, decide what I don't like, and kind of make my own way.
That's good. I tend to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'd say I never really had in my probably 15 years in my professional career, between the time I left Fidelity in Boston in the year 2000 and then I moved to Ireland and then spent 10 years working for BNP Paribas. I don't think I ever had one single mentor.
Yeah.
I had one when I left, that was there in Boston for me, who became a good friend, but then lost touch with him. But, it was always look to other people for influence. Look at other people and say, I like what they're doing. I don't like what they're doing. So do more of what the person you like doing. Do more of what they're doing. Do less of what the other one's doing.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, what I've probably discovered, and I was doing it, but subconsciously, is that I tend to gravitate towards people who I can trust. I gravitate towards people who, I suppose, in some way have similar kind of ethical values. Because trust and fairness are really, really important for me. And if I'm doing something for someone, I don't expect something in return, but at the same time, you kind of want to get a little bit back, or you want to see that someone has your back if you have theirs as well. So those types of things are massively important. Okay.
I was going to suggest that you and I try a fictitious coaching session right now.
Live demo. Let's do it.
You want to do it?
If you want. How long do you have?
Exactly. No.
Which demon do you want to work on?
I think we'll leave those demons to one side for now. We'll capture that off air.
Leave the mics rolling.
I do live a transparent life, but not that transparent. But anyway, listen, Paul, thank you for coming back on the show.
Very welcome.
Really appreciate you having here. Anything from a closing perspective that you want to kind of say to the world with our massive listener base across 23 countries?
Yeah, well, coaching can be done virtually as well, so no problem at all. No, I think, like, I'd encourage everyone to seek out a coach. It absolutely doesn't need to be me. I've had a lot of coaching through the course in particular, and I've seen the benefits genuinely for myself. So I just encourage people to look into it and be curious about it and be curious about themselves.
What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, Paul at Possible.ie.
I love that URL.
Anything is Possible.ie.
It is. I've just reserved a few new URLs myself, and it's amazing to see what's there and what's not there.
I know. Yeah.
So maybe go buy up all the ones that you're amazed to see are still out there and see if you can sell them on.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Paul.
Thanks, Pete.
Money never sleeps, pal.
So that wraps it up, folks. Thanks for listening for us try to figure out why Paul does what he does. Links are in the show notes for this episode on moneyneversleeps.ie, so check us out online. Remember, if you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, it is highly advisable that you build a relationship with the team at Top Tier Recruitment, as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com. Also, thank you to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for recording and editing this podcast. If you have any ideas at all of starting up your own podcast, please get in touch with Conan. He's a consummate professional. As for me, I increase the odds of startup success. Get in touch if you want to lay the groundwork for doing something incredible or just shift into high gear. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!